Hey everyone, my name is Melissa Benson and I'm the collaborative lead at CDW Amplified for Education. And in this collaborative corner video, I'll be reviewing key Google and Chrome updates from last year. Now, please note, this is not at all a complete list of everything that was important, but I will be reviewing and focusing on updates that are one, important, but then also important for you to know going forward and working within your domain. So let's get it kicked off with this very big update. And this update is admins now have the ability to block all third-party API access. Okay, so what does this mean? I think the best way to explain it is, you know, when you're on those websites and they give you the option to sign in with Google, right? Your users can do that with your school account, which is not always the best. And so now we have the ability to say, block that. Block any of my users from using their school account to log in with Google. That's what we're talking about here. So that's the impact. Now, hold your horses on getting too excited and saying, ooh, I got to go set that. This is not a setting that you can just learn about and configure. Why? Because we don't want to make our users mad. So while the setting is here, you have to work with your IT team and your instructional team to say, how do we want to use this? What is our school policy? Because if you just turn this on without doing anything else, there's going to be disruption. There's some sites and apps that you do want to sign in with Google. So the hard part is taking the time and coming up with, okay, what's our policy? And then what most schools have been doing is they have spent majority of their time with this, creating that trusted list. You need to go through and create a trusted list first, then head into this brand new setting and checking that box. So that's very important. So being aware that this is here, but then talking with your different key stakeholders and deciding how you want to use this, if at all, going forward. We've put the navigation on how to get there. So that's a real big update. It's going to take a little bit of time, though, to really fully figure out what works best for your Google environment. Moving on, pretty simple one. We now, as a Google admin, have the ability to look at new Google sites in Vault. So when would you use this? Well, have you ever been asked to look up a student's new Google site because there's games or something on there, something inappropriate? Well, now as a Google admin, you can go into Vault and then look up the new Google sites for that user and be able to see the content without actually being shared on it. So there's no actions you have to take, just being aware that this is possible. So if you get these requests, you know you can have that visibility within these new sites within Vault. All right, moving on, dynamic groups. Now, if you have never heard of dynamic groups, this is for standard and plus editions, but dynamic groups are a way to really easily manage your groups with automation and automatic syncing with different attributes. If you've already heard of dynamic groups, there was a lot of updates last year. You can use them as access groups, configuration groups. You can now query and use custom attributes that came in December. You can do syncing with OUs. So some use cases would be sync an OU with a dynamic group to use as an email list or a sharing list. Or how about using the attribute of is not enrolled in two-step verification, using that as an access group to enable or disable Gmail for them. So dynamic groups are out of beta for Plus and Standard, lots of updates to it. Go ahead, check out some of these links and see if dynamic groups are something you can utilize. Okay, anybody remember September 1st and the new age-based setting? A quick reminder, I mean, we're all pretty much past this, but remember there is that main setting within our account settings, the age-based access. We have the ability to mark users as over 18. By default, everybody's under 18. You have to purposefully say this group of users or we recommend having that main staff OU say, these are all users that are over 18. Just to review that you have that workflow and your user provisioning set up in a good way, so your users have the appropriate, under or over 18. And then I'm going to focus on the impact of this new setting when it comes to additional services. So one of the big pieces of impact is with the more restricted experience. Any Google services that you as an admin cannot control, like you can't turn it off in the admin console, those services are no longer available to any users under 18. And that's because if we don't have control over it, then our students should not be able to use it, right? So that was a big change. So going into additional services, first, we'll talk about the more boring pieces. In our additional services in the admin console, Pinpoint, Google Messages, Question Hub, brand accounts, these were services that were all added into the console last year. You can forget about any of these besides brand accounts. Yes, brand accounts. Now, if you're utilizing brand accounts, the way to go is an access group. There shouldn't be more than a half a dozen users that need this. So just note that. But here's more exciting additions. Colab, Google Arts and Culture, Translate. These services all stopped working for under 18, but now they should be working because Google has added them back in the admin console. So all 3 and all 4 of these are now in the admin console that we can turn on or off, which now means we can turn those on for students. So if you're, and when they came back in, they came back in off. So if you haven't went back to your teachers to say, hey, Colab's now available again, arts and culture, you can use that again. You have to make sure that you go in there, turn it on, and then communicate with your teachers that, hey, this is now possible for students. Let's head over into Chrome. Chrome OS stable has, since version 96, has moved from a 6-week release to a 4-week release. Along the same lines, there is a brand new channel. The channel is called long-term support or long-term candidate. The key to this is that this is a channel that's just a more stable because it doesn't update as much. So it updates every 6 months. There's an excellent help document on the blog post link and then in the read more here that talks about LTS. But the key for now is if you want any of your devices to be in this long-term support channel, they cannot update to 97. So we have to pin them to 96 or switch over to LTC now, unless, and if we don't do that, then we miss out until 102. Okay, so if it sounds interesting, you need to make sure that you pin them at 96, because if they get to 97, then they can't be in 96 LTS, if that makes sense. All right, this is a more in-depth in the weeds. I had to throw one of these in here. This is pretty cool. A lot of our collaborative members are saying they've utilized these data capture logs with solving problems for some Wi-Fi issues. So the biggest reason why I wanted to mention this is because to get this feature, you have to enable a setting. So with the device capture system logs, what it allows you to do is go into a Chromebook device record and then capture the logs, and you get a whole bunch of files to get a lot more information to solve lingering problems. But the action required is you have to go into the device settings and enable the device system log upload setting, or else you'll be confused and you're like, wait a minute, I don't see capture log. This action required is a setting you have to configure. Start there first, go and explore, have a grand old time, and you'll thank me later. Same thing for this real important report. Have you ever wanted to know what Chrome apps and extensions your users are installing? Now, this is just for Chromebooks, so Chrome OS, but you have the ability now to go in and, just like this screenshot has, you can see the apps and extensions users have installed. See right down here, users. you can see which users have installed these apps, but you have to come over to this right-hand side here. You must enable the reporting setting in the Chrome user and browser settings. So just like the last slide, enable this important setting, then visit a couple days later this report, and you'll be able to see a lot of information about what your users are using as far as Chrome apps and extensions. So that's a game changer for some people. This is a game changer for some people, the ability to end a Google Meet. Now, please do note we use the investigation tool for this feature, meaning you have to have the standard or plus edition. And really the impact is simple. The impact is I want to cancel and I want to take care of a lingering meet. Real easy to use. Jump into your investigation tool, do a search for meet log events. Then I'd be able to go to actions and then end meeting for all. Classroom Meet improvements. Few takeaways here and a couple of updates here. So what we've got is with Classroom Google Meets, students will be directed to a waiting room until the teacher has joined. Second, anybody that's not on the classroom roster will have to ask to join. Finally, any co-teachers on that Google Classroom will automatically get co-host controls. So finally, Google is using the classroom roster to take care of opening and closing that Classroom Meet door. Two more important items for us admins. Classroom Meets are no longer nickname meets. That's very important when we're troubleshooting. And then second, the quick access. The quick access for Classroom Meets is by default off. Even if you have the quick access setting in the console, that new setting, even if you have that set as the opposite, it will not affect the quick access setting in a Classroom Meet. They're special. All right. A few more here before we wrap up is viewing Google Classroom activity in the admin console. Awesome. I love the reporting section. Real simple one here. If you haven't been into the reporting section lately, head into reporting. Go underneath audit. You will see Google Classroom and you'll be able to see when users are added, removed, when classes are deleted, archived, assignment information. This is awesome for us to be able to see and get some, sort of back-end access within Classroom. Another Classroom setting that you do have to make sure that you go into the console and change this, or else you're not using this new setting. You have the ability to say students cannot unenroll themselves from a Google Classroom. But again, you do have to go into the Google Classroom settings and change that setting for that student OU. Last March, we finally got version history and we can restore down to different histories for Jamboard. And then finally, to wrap up, lots of changes and announcements when it comes to Google Workspace and the storage policies. So in a nutshell, July of this year, 2022, Google now is going to a limited account storage. It will be combined 100 terabytes of storage. Go ahead and read more. If you have the different editions, if you have more than 20,000 active users, you get more. But in the summer, they're going to be implementing an account storage policy. Now, May 2nd, and this is actually brand new. It was February, but native files will start taking up space as well. And the action for this, just to get started, is besides reading more, bookmarking this page, using this calculator as a super admin logged into your domain, it gives you a really nifty account storage report. It takes into consideration your different additions and users. And so this is the most up-to-date and official account storage utilization. This is a tool directly from Google to you. So if you have not run that report, this is your takeaway for this slide, is running this report to see where you currently sit. That brings us to the end. I know that was a lot in a little bit of time, but hopefully that was useful to you. And if you are interested in keeping up to date on a more frequent basis, come join us over in the Google Technical Collaborative community. We've got a link here on the blog, and we'd be happy to have you join. But until then, take care and keep on Googling.